You have made it to Gooner Down Under TV, and as always, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here. Today, we are talking about the big one. Are Arsenal good enough to win this Premier League? You know, last season we got real close. A lot of us fans started dreaming, I think, a little bit too early, myself absolutely included. And then whatever you want to call it, burning out, choking, bottling it, it happened. Man City ended up catching us, and we couldn't end this drought. As Arsenal fans, we need one of these big boy trophies. We want a Premier League or our first Champions League, and we feel like it's time. The process has gone on long enough, and we need it. This video is going to be breaking down our chances, the pros of the team, some cons, looking at what our rivals are doing as well. But before we get into any of that, I want to hear your opinion. So leave a comment down below. Are we going to win the league? If you don't think we are, why? How many pieces are we potentially off from winning it? If you do think we are, state your reasons as well. I love to hear from all of you. So with that being said, we're going to get into it. And I'm going to talk about our biggest strength first, and it is our flexibility. We saw in that Nottingham Forest game, Arteta does a mad one, drops Gabriel, who was basically one of the first names on every team sheet up until this last weekend. Drops him, puts Ben White right centre-back, Saliba left centre-back, and Partey at right-back so he can invert into the midfield. I think, this was something he played around with a little bit at the end of last season for those last two games, but none of us really predicted it, or maybe none of us even thought he'd go back to it. It never happened in preseason, so we assumed we knew what he was going to do in that first game, maybe barring does Kai play. But then, he completely turns it up. He knows Nottingham Forest are going to put everyone behind the ball, park that bus, look for one opportunity. And, he was right. That's pretty much what they did. And who knows, if we played 4-3-3, maybe we'd struggle to break them down. Their one goal, not like they carved us open, was off a set piece, poor defending. Their guy runs 70 meters odd, puts the ball in, that's it. So, he doesn't do that. He decides to change it to a sort of 3-1-3-3 formation in attack, gets 10 people who are all good on the ball, all strong, all, can handle pressure of defense and be able to just play that beautiful football. And for that first half, it definitely worked. We're playing some really intricate passes, and I think that's something we're going to need to do against these low block teams. Because we even saw last season, sometimes we did struggle to break these teams down, and I think we're going to have to really go gung-ho to try and get as many wins on the table this season. And, especially without a prolific number 9, we're going to have to share those goals. And I think we're going to have those 3 midfielders of Rice, Havertz, Odegaard in front of Partey, and 3 attackers in front to give us the best chance of breaking these teams down that don't want to play against us. They're just maybe looking for a draw or one opportunity to capitalize. And so that's the first thing we're going to get into. It's the different lineups we're going to be able to put out this season. So, if we're versing one of the big boys, I think we're going to probably be able to rock something like this. White, Saliba, Gabriel and Zinchenko in the back, Partey and Rice in that midfield with Odegaard, and then Saka, Martinelli and Jesus when he's fit. It's very strong, both attackingly and defensively. Rice and Partey together, a lot of teams are going to find that really hard to break down and dominate our midfield. And then if they somehow get past them, we've got 4 capable defenders behind. Maybe Zinchenko lacks a little bit defensively, but what he does adding into our midfield is also a game changer as well. But, if we're not versing sort of a City or a Liverpool United, and we're versing a team that's just going to park that bus like Forest, we can also go with something like this now. So White, Saliba, Tomiyasu now in the back with Timber's injury. Partey in front of them. Got 3 of Rice, Havertz, Odegaard, and then Saka, Martinelli. Just for sake, I put Trossard, but Eddie, Jesus when he comes back fit. And I feel like that gives us a lot of different avenues to be able to unlock these defenses. Now, I will say, rotating every game has its pros and cons, but I think it is necessary. You see Man City, how they've been dominating the league the last 6, 7 seasons. They don't usually have 1-11. They're always rotating. People are coming in, filling out. And I think you sort of take a little bit back on maybe your peak 11's capability because they don't play as much together. They won't be able to gel. But what you can guarantee pretty much is that you're going to have a fit 11 for the whole season. You're not relying on 1-11 to carry you week in, week out. You're going through different systems, different players coming in, and you're just slowly picking up those results every week. You've seen that last 2 seasons. We've gone with that same 11 and we've reached some pretty good highs. But then at the end of the season, when their legs aren't under them anymore, sort of just collapse. It's looking like a whole different team. And so I think it's not only important, but I think it's necessary at this point to sort of match City's strategy of mixing and matching, because we can't just play that same team. We have Champions League now as well. Last season in the Europa, we had the luxury of playing a lot of our bench guys in for those games. We're not going to have that this time. We're going to have to play strong teams in both competitions. And that means, we can't get fixated on 1-11. Sometimes we're not probably going to like what Arteta chooses pre-match, but we're going to have to wait and see because it's going to matter over the whole season. Even if it's not the best performances, especially for those first couple months, like City, as long as we're just casually picking up results, it doesn't really matter. We need to pick up that sort of form maybe February, March, and go on a massive run to finish off the season. And hopefully that's what Arteta's planning for and sort of trying to prioritize, which we could see against Nottingham Forest, playing a different system. And I think this is a system that multiple different people can play in. I think that's definitely a positive we have. Going back to this screen, with this, we've seen Timber unfortunately get injured. We've got Tomiyasu who could play in his place. We've got Havertz, Smith Rowe can come in, Partey, Jorginho can come in. Trossard, like I said, Nketiah, Jesus can play up there. Martinelli, maybe he's off a couple games. Trossard goes out to the left. We have enough players now, where we can play different systems with different players and hopefully still get those results. And I think that is a huge positive of this team. We don't need to be one way all the time. We're a little bit more unpredictable. Teams don't know how they're going to, match up against us or how we're going to match up against them. And I think that gives us a massive advantage, especially after last season breaking onto the scene. A lot of people were saying, okay, now everyone knows what Arsenal does. This is their second season. They're not going to sort of blow us out of nowhere. Now teams are going to be prepped for us. But I think, these two systems, and Arteta can play multiple different ones as well, is going to be one reason where maybe we stay ahead of the curve. And I think so far, Arteta's done a pretty good job of that. Hopefully this is nothing to change. Now, let me just scoot on over. Another good reason, we've got flexibility, but also, like I said, we're going to have to play Champions League, which means we can't just play our bench guys. We're going to have a lot of different games with matched maybe half of that first 11 that we'd like to see week in, week out, and those rotation players coming in and being pivotal. Now we've got a point where we're looking pretty strong even when we mix and match. I left this goalkeeper position open because David Raya can come in, step in there. Then we can have a back four of Tomiyasu, Saliba, Kivior, and Zinchenko. It's very strong. 3 defenders from Kivior to Tomiyasu. Very, very good defenders, very strong, very athletic. And then Zinchenko, slot into that midfield, dominate that midfield game, spray out those passes, and help us dominate possession like he does. Then moving on, you can have so many different people here. Rice, Partey, Jorginho. That 8 position, you can have Smith Rowe, Vieira, who I don't want to see too much in the Premier League or Champions League. He's shown some glimpses, but I think I'd rather see him in all our cup games. But now Trossard, in preseason, he looked pretty good in that number 8 role. I think it was that first game against Nuremberg. And then, same for that right 8. You have Odegaard, Havertz, Smith Rowe. We have options this season, and I think that is going to be huge. Smith Rowe hasn't played too much. In glimpses, looked very sharp in preseason, and he's going to be one that we really need to step up. A couple seasons ago, I think he got 10 or 12 goals in the league. A lot of those coming off the bench as well. And so if we can get similar productivity from him, again, coming off that bench, that would be huge for us. And in that attacking position, we've got Saka, Nketiah, Jesus, Trossard, Martinelli. It's good, but this is where we're sort of coming in to maybe our cons. I think we definitely have a good attack. You saw against Forest, even when they were going so negative, moments of magic from Martinelli and Saka carried us, won us the game. I think they can do it on a consistent basis, but I think we also need other threats up front. I think we definitely need another striker. Shameless plug, check out my video telling us 5 strikers Arsenal should pursue. That was right after Jesus' injury. And, like that video, it doesn't need to be a massive player. It doesn't need to be an Osimhen or a Vlahovic. There's some good players in this market who don't need to start week in, week out, but can just give us another option, a little bit more versatility, and a little bit more productivity as well. That being said, striker, next thing I didn't mention in terms of cons is a Saka replacement. We're looking deep in a lot of positions. That Saka backup isn't quite there. I do like Reece Nelson, but are you confident with him necessarily starting in the Premier League or in the Champions League? Not sure. And with how close we are to winning, a big trophy, we were right there last season. I don't want to take too many chances. Yes, I love Reece, but I think we need a proven backup right wing because we need to be solid on all fronts. And this last one, Timber replacement, unfortunately, our luck, he picks up an injury first game of the season. And, it didn't look good. Apparently, early reports are saying that it's an ACL injury. If it's torn, that's up to 9 months. So he's going to basically miss the whole season. Do we need to now find someone to sort of fit into his place? In preseason, he looked amazing. Even, that first game until he got injured looked very good. He's so good on the ball. He's athletic, like I always say. And so, we might need to try and bring in someone to replace him. I think Tomiyasu, if we're playing that same system against Forest, is actually a pretty good shout for a left centre-back. I wouldn't mind Tierney there. I think he'd actually be perfect in that left centre-back role. I don't know why we're getting rid of him. Arteta just doesn't favour him at all. But I think, if we're playing that system, I would absolutely have Tierney there. If we're going back 4, I can understand why not. He wants that inverted role. He wants, that more domination in midfield. So I completely get that. But I think Tierney, for teams like Forest, playing left centre-back would be perfect. It doesn't look like Arteta's going to use him or maybe even keep him. So I think that's something that we're going to have to get out of our minds. Beyond that, I think our other sort of weaknesses are maybe lapses of concentration. Sometimes we'll be having 80-85% of the ball, and we just let the other team have chances that are too easy. Forest should have probably scored 2, and it could have been a whole different game. We had a little bit of luck there, but I think it's a common theme. We dominate a game, yet the other team can get something out of nothing. And so we're going to have to really clear that up, especially if we want to, like I said, compete multiple fronts, 38-game season. We're going to have to rely on our solid defense and not being lucky on a consistent basis. And so, look, these are sort of biggest cons I have. Again, if you think there's anything I'm missing, leave it down below. But the last section of this chat is going to be our rival talk. There is only one Premier League. Unfortunately, everyone else is also trying to win it as well. And so, how do we stack up? All I'm going to say right now, Tottenham, they're not in this chat. Liverpool, after they just got absolutely mudded from Chelsea, losing Lavia and Caicedo, it's looking like Tyler Adams is going to Bournemouth as well. So, they've got a huge hole in the middle of their midfield. They put in McAllister for their first game. If they're putting him out for all 38, which I don't think, but if they do, I think they're going to be nowhere near the title, and they're probably going to even really struggle to find the Champions League spot. I don't know who else is really out there for them to pick up. Besides that number 6, I think they've got other defensive liabilities or weaknesses, a couple injuries, and it could be another horror show for them again. And so at the moment, I don't think they're sort of going to be neck and neck competing with us. And I think as long as we do what we do, we should be able to be far and away from them. Going into these other teams, United, they're not convincing. I'm not necessarily looking at just the game against Wolves. I think they just still have a lot that they need to do. Yes, they brought in Højlund. He scored 9 goals, very unproven. Can he translate into the league and completely go boom? I don't see it. So I think they're going to have to really wait on him or expect Rashford to have another crazy season. But even if he does, who else is going to pitch in and help him out? Antony's not looking great. Sancho, hasn't been shown to be productive. Besides that, Mount is looking like he's playing next to Casemiro, double pivot. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't think he's great in that role. Onana's going to have to fit into a new league. I think there's a lot of question marks there. And, similar to Liverpool, I think they might struggle to get a Champions League spot this season. A lot of that is because maybe they just haven't built a team right for Ten Hag. Maybe it's sort of just a mismatching of systems, but I don't see them really competing like they did for parts of last year. That being said, Chelsea, horrible season last year, spent $7.18 billion. Now, they're starting to have a really good team. Talk about a midfielder, Fernandes, Lavia, and Caicedo. That's scary. I think a lot of teams are going to really struggle. You might be able to even play all 3 of them together and just really dominate. No one's getting through that. I think, they also got some other pieces, Thiago Silva, Reece James, Modric, who, they've spent a lot of money on. And so there's going to be huge expectations on them, but I don't know if they have enough sort of solidity, enough time together to be able to mesh things. I think over the next 5 years, they're going to be a really big threat, unfortunately. But I think maybe this season, they're still going to take a little bit of time to get up to it. So, actually, before I get into this, I'm going to talk about Newcastle as well. They're not in this photo, but I think they might be the biggest threat to us competing again. I don't think they might win it, but I think, if we don't, they're going to be pretty close to us. They brought in Tonali, who looks like a really good buy at this point. 70 million is looking like a steal for a midfielder of his ability, but they've got a lot of pieces. Isak, Barnes, Gordon looked really good, Joelinton, Guimaraes, the list goes on and on. A really solid defense. And so I think they're going to really be another good team. Similar to us, they also have Champions League. How does their depth relate? Yes, they've got a lot of depth, but is it sort of high enough quality to be able to successfully compete in both? I guess that's something we're going to have to see. Do they have enough world-class players or potential world-class talent on a night to be able to lead them in 2 competitions? I think that might be a little bit of a tough one for them. No one's necessarily going to want to play in Newcastle. It's a tough stadium to get a win at, but I think they might just be under us, but probably above all our other rivals. And then it comes down to Man City. These people just don't get enough of winning. Unfortunately, just want to claim everything. And it's getting really boring, to be honest. I just wish, Guardiola would retire. Just, go enjoy life, be with the family. chill, but it doesn't look like he's going to be doing that anytime soon. So they're going to be a massive threat every season. Probably going to sound a bit, of like that whole deja vu scene, but I think they are weaker than last year. Losing Mahrez, losing Gundogan, who both at times came up with crucial goals. Gundogan for those last 10 games or so, I feel like he scored every single game. And so losing him is going to be a tough thing for them to recover from. It looks like they might play Foden in that position, or potentially Foden right wing and bring in Paqueta. I'm not huge on Paqueta. I think if he comes in, I would still take last season's team over this one. Maybe in the future, Paqueta can grow into things. Foden can become, world class. But I think right now, they're maybe a little bit weaker. At some point, they have to burn out, right? Like, there's no way they can continuously go on year in, year out and win every time. At some point, something has to happen. And so, honestly, I'm picking it to be this season. I think Arsenal are going to be able to pitch it or just claim it because, like I said, our flexibility, our versatility, we're starting to now have players that can play in different systems to be able to beat different types of teams and how they set up. And so, I hope, I'm going to say, I'm hoping we can be good enough to win it this year. Would love to win the Champions League, so either or, but this video is all about the Premier League. And so that's my opinion. I hope Arsenal's going to win it based on the other teams, based on, sort of where we can potentially go with our flexibility. I wish we would still get a striker and maybe a Saka replacement. But even if we don't, I'm just going to pick us to win. Let me know what you think. Like I said, do you think I'm foolish, deluded? Do you think I'm right, like bang on? Let me know. If you haven't seen out my other content, check that out as well. And there'll be many more videos to come. But for now, peace.